My name is Ethan Cole, and I was the husband who married into money. On our wedding anniversary, the night before Horizon AI, the company my wife and I built from the ground up, was set to ring the opening bell at NASDAQ. My wife, Isabella Vance, slid a stack of papers across the table. We were at the celebration dinner, in front of all our friends and family. They were divorce papers. Ethan, I want a divorce. Her voice was quiet, but it landed like a sledgehammer, shattering the room's cheerful buzz. She was holding another man's arm, Caleb Thorne, a rising star in the city's investment banking scene. The smile on her face was more radiant than any I had ever seen directed at me. After the IPO, all company equity and assets will have nothing to do with you, she continued. As a severance, you can have the condo, and there's $1 million in this account. Consider it a thank you for your 5 years of service. My father-in-law, Marcus Vance, the chairman of Vance Industries, shot me a look of pure contempt. He turned to my daughter, who was sitting beside me. Sophie, come here. Come to Grandpa. Get away from this failure. My 5-year-old daughter, Sophie Cole, looked like she was about to cry. Before I could comfort her, my mother-in-law forcibly pulled her from my arms. I looked at Isabella, the woman I had loved for 5 years. The woman for whom I had poured everything I had, building a 2-person startup into a company on the verge of a multi-billion-dollar valuation. There wasn't a trace of guilt in her eyes, only relief and disgust. Why? I managed my voice hoarse. Caleb wrapped his arm around her waist, a triumphant smirk on his face. Don't ask why, Ethan. Isabella deserves better. You were just a stepping stone. Now that the ship's in port, it's time to kick the gangplank into the water, isn't it? The eyes of every guest in the room were on me. Some looked pitiful, some mocking, some openly gloating. Each stare was a needle piercing my skin. I looked down at the cold, clinical divorce agreement. The terms were insulting. For 5 years, I had worked myself to the bone. Working 24/7 was my normal. I'd worked so hard, I'd been hospitalized for a bleeding ulcer 3 times. Every patent, every line of core code was mine. And now, they thought they could buy my entire life's work for $1 million and throw me out like trash. Fine. The heart that had been hanging by a thread for 5 years was finally still. I picked up the pen. Under the astonished gaze of everyone in the room, I signed my name. Ethan, are you insane? My only friend, Leo Garcia, our company's head of engineering, rushed forward to stop me. I pushed him aside, slid the signed agreement back to Isabella, and said to her, each word deliberate and clear, Isabella, I hope you don't live to regret this. She let out a short, sharp laugh and tightened her grip on Caleb's arm, accepting the congratulations of the crowd like a queen. It was as if I were already dead. They thought I'd lost everything. They had no idea that by signing those papers, I wasn't surrendering. I was sounding the charge. 1. I walked out of the banquet hall, the sound of their laughter a grating insult. Leo chased after me, so furious he could barely speak, and landed a half-hearted punch on my shoulder. Ethan, are you an idiot? You built that company from scratch. Why would you just hand it all over to her? What's the endgame here? I glanced back at the brilliantly lit hall. The people in there, I once thought they were my family. Leo, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. Just wait. Tomorrow's when the Real show begins. The next morning, the financial news was plastered with headlines. Horizon AI makes spectacular NASDAQ debut. Market cap soars past $10 billion. Isabella Vance, heiress of Vance Industries, and banking prodigy Caleb Thorne craft a new tech legend. On TV, Isabella was radiant in a designer dress, standing next to a preening Caleb Thorne. My ex-father-in-law, Marcus Vance, beamed as the company's largest shareholder. They were the toast of New York City. Isabella's phone was blowing up with calls and texts. She posted a picture on Instagram of herself and Caleb, captioned, "Thankful for those who truly matter." On to the next chapter. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Leo, and his voice was trembling. Ethan, you need to see the company's Slack right now. Something big just happened. I opened my laptop and logged into Horizon AI's internal network. Pinned to the top of the main channel, highlighted in red, was a company-wide announcement from the new CEO, Caleb Thorne. Subject, regarding the termination of former CTO Ethan Cole. Inside, a carefully crafted narrative painted my 5 years of relentless work as the bumbling efforts of an incompetent freeloader who stole credit for others' achievements. It concluded by stating I had been removed for the health of the company. But they weren't finished. The next thing I received was a letter from Horizon AI's legal department, delivered by a courier. They were suing me for theft of trade secrets and had already filed a motion to freeze all my personal assets, including the $1 million Isabella had so generously given me. They didn't just want to leave me with nothing. They wanted to ruin my reputation, to salt the earth so that nothing in my career would ever grow again. Leo was losing his mind on the other end of the phone. These bastards. How dare they? You wrote every single line of the core code yourself. Ethan, we have to fight them. Fight them. I laughed, a cold, empty sound. Leo, you give them too much credit. You don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. I navigated to a folder buried deep on my hard drive. Inside was a single file, Project Singularity. This was my real ace in the hole. 3 years ago, when I first sensed the depth of the Van Cess greed and cold-blooded ambition, I had started building a lifeboat. Horizon AI, as it stood, was a shell. What is the core of a tech company? It's technology. It's patents. The owner of all of Horizon AI's core algorithms, its foundational architecture, and its nearly 100 critical patents wasn't Horizon AI. It was a holding company I had registered in the Cayman Islands called Singularity Holdings. And the sole shareholder of that company was me, Ethan Cole. Horizon AI had been operating under a technology licensing agreement with Singularity, an agreement that contained a single, crucial clause that Isabella and her father had, in their arrogance, never bothered to scrutinize. The final right to interpret and immediately terminate. This licensing agreement resides solely with Singularity Holdings. The moment I signed that divorce agreement, our business relationship was over, and the clock started ticking on Horizon AI's execution. With Leo still on the line, I drafted a new email and hit send. To the Board of Directors, Horizon AI. Subject: Notice of immediate termination of the Singularity Core Technology Licensing Agreement. Leo, I said into the phone, get a hold of the guys we can trust. Coffee shop downstairs, 3 p.m. today. Tell them if they're willing to walk with me, I'll give them a future they can actually own. I hung up and looked out the window. A storm was coming. 2. The email landed like a depth charge in Horizon AI's executive circle. Caleb was the first to react. He tagged me directly in the executive group chat. They hadn't gotten around to removing me yet, his tone dripping with condescension. At Ethan Cole, did the divorce break your brain? What is this prank? Singularity Holdings? Stop trying to get attention and focus on how you're going to explain corporate espionage to our lawyers. My ex-father-in-law, Marcus Vance, chimed in, Ethan, you're a graduate of a good university, for God's sake. Don't be so classless. Let's part ways amicably before you force us to make things truly ugly for you. Then, a private message from Isabella appeared. Ethan, what the hell do you think you're doing? Do you really think this pathetic stunt is going to threaten me? Don't forget, Sophie is with me. If you want her to grow up being ashamed of her destitute father, by all means, keep it up. Once again, she was using our daughter as a weapon. Looking at her cold, typed words, the last ember of affection I held for her finally died. I didn't reply to anyone. I just waited. 30 minutes later, Caleb wasn't laughing anymore. The company's chief legal officer, a shark I had personally headhunted from a top Wall Street firm, had, after a frantic review of the licensing agreement, delivered the news to Caleb and Marcus. His face was ashen. Mr. Thorne, Mr. Vance, Ethan isn't bluffing. The lawyer's voice was unsteady. Legally, this company is just a licensed user of the technology. All of the core intellectual property. It's not registered under Horizon AI. The licensing agreement is ironclad. If he terminates it, our $10 billion company will instantly become a worthless shell. The group chat went dead silent. Then panic erupted. What? How is that possible? What happens to our stock? We've only been public for 2 days. When did he? How long has he been planning this? Caleb's name started flashing on my phone screen. I declined every call. At 3 p.m., the coffee shop was packed. All 34 engineers from Horizon AI's core technology division were there. These were my guys, the team I had built and mentored from the ground up. I stood up, looking at the faces of the people I had gone to war with for 5 years. Everyone, you know the situation. I'll keep it brief. You have 2 choices. 1. stay at Horizon, watch the ship sink, and wait to get laid off when the company goes bankrupt. 2. Come with me. I've started a new company. It's called Singularity AI. Your position, salary, and stock options will all be double what you had at Horizon. And I give you my word. In 3 years, we will build something 10 times greater than Horizon ever could have been. There was no hesitation. We're with you, Ethan. We've known the Van Cess were snakes for years. They treated you like a workhorse. Damn right. Without Ethan Cole, Horizon AI is nothing. You're the guy we work for. Not a single person chose to stay. Loyalty isn't demanded, it's earned. That afternoon, news that Horizon AI's entire R&D department had resigned en masse hit the street. The market is a nervous animal. After 2 days of meteoric rises, Horizon AI's stock price, without any warning, went off a cliff in the final hour of trading. Panic selling began. Isabella, Caleb, and Marcus were losing their minds. My phone was overheating from their constant calls and messages. Isabella tried calling again. Honey, I was wrong. Please come back. We don't have to get a divorce. Caleb is just a friend. Nothing happened between us. I love you. Her voice was thick with tears and terror. Honey, a little late for that. I laughed coldly. Isabella, that's not what you said when you signed the divorce papers. My father made me do it. It was all my dad and Caleb's idea. Ethan, please believe me. Let's start over. For Sophie, you don't get to use her name, I said, and hung up. Next was Marcus Vance. His earlier contempt was replaced by a pathetic, pleading tone. Ethan, my dear boy, I was wrong. I was blind. Don't hold it against Isabella. You two just had a little fight. Please come back. The company needs you. Mr. Vance, do you remember when you called me a failure? Did you ever imagine this day would come? I was just angry. I didn't mean it. It's too late. I hung up and blocked all their numbers. Caleb managed to get through to me using a friend's phone, his voice a furious roar. Cole, you backstabbing son of a bitch. You think you've won? You destroyed the company, but you get nothing. Is that what you think? I said, a light chuckle in my voice. Caleb, you think my goal was just to destroy Horizon AI? No, my goal is you and the entire Vance family. What? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that the show is just getting started. 3. By the time the market closed, Horizon AI's stock had fallen below its IPO price. In a single day, its market cap had evaporated by more than 70%. The investors and hedge funds that had bought in at the peak were trapped, their portfolios decimated. The internet was on fire with furious denunciations of Isabella and Caleb. This is blatant securities fraud. Vance and Thorne stole my money. What a joke. This whole IPO was a scam built on stolen tech. How can you go public when you don't even own your own IP? I heard they pushed out the tech genius who built it all, Ethan Cole, with nothing. Sounds like the Scorpion and the Frog story all over again. The Van Cess and Caleb Thorne have fallen from grace. But for them, this was just the appetizer. To ensure the IPO was a success, my ex-father-in-law had diverted a significant amount of capital from his main company, Vance Industries. He'd also used the company as collateral to secure a massive bank loan. Now, with Horizon AI stock being worthless, the bank's margin calls and legal summonses were flying at Vance Industries like a blizzard. Vance Industries was already a struggling giant, rotten from the inside. This final blow knocked out its last supporting pillar. The company's credit line was frozen. Caleb Thorne wasn't faring any better. As the lead underwriter for the IPO, he was facing accusations of gross negligence in his due diligence and possibly conspiracy to commit fraud. His firm suspended him indefinitely, and the SEC had already launched a formal investigation. His career was over. For me, the week was peaceful. I leased a prime office space in Midtown Manhattan and, with my team of 34 engineers, officially launched Singularity AI. I made a public announcement, clarifying that Singularity AI held the exclusive intellectual property rights to all of Horizon AI's core technology, and that we would be unveiling a revolutionary new AI product within a month. The moment the news broke, the winds of capital changed direction. The same venture capitalists who had been falling over themselves to invest in Horizon AI now swarmed to me like sharks smelling blood in the water. Within a week, I had secured funding from 3 top-tier VC firms. The valuation of my new company was 3 times Horizon AI's peak market cap. I, Ethan Cole, was no longer the live-in son-in-law who depended on the Vance family status. I had become a figure they, and the entire tech world, had to look up to. The Vance family finally broke. Marcus Vance's hair seemed to turn gray overnight. Isabella was a wreck, a shadow of her former self. They sold their mansion, their luxury cars, and begged friends for loans, only to be turned away at every door. One evening, they showed up outside my temporary apartment building. Isabella was wearing simple, plain clothes, her face pale and devoid of makeup, her eyes swollen and red. The moment she saw me, she fell to her knees. "Ethan, I'm begging you, please let us go," she sobbed, clutching at my leg. "It was all my fault. I was out of my mind. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. I'll be your slave. Just please forgive us this one time." My ex-mother-in-law joined the pathetic chorus. "Ethan, for Sophie's sake, just help us out. Sophie can't lose her grandparents." Sophie again. I looked at their grotesque, pleading faces and felt nothing but disgust. "When you ripped Sophie from my arms and said I was a failure who didn't deserve to be her father, were you thinking about her then?" I kicked her hand away, my gaze like ice. Marcus Vance committed fraud and embezzled company funds. That was his choice. Caleb Thorne was consumed by greed. He brought about his own ruin. And you, Isabella, you are a faithless, backstabbing traitor. Every single one of you deserves what's happening to you. I'm not helping you. You won't see a single penny from me. Where do you think everything you wanted came from? It came from 5 years of my sweat and my health. You enjoyed the fruits of my labor, and at the last second, you tried to swallow me whole. Get out. I pointed toward the street. And disappear from my life. Seeing that begging was useless, Isabella's mask of remorse finally cracked. She staggered to her feet, her eyes filled with a venomous hatred, like a demon crawling from the depths of hell. "Ethan, don't you dare be so smug. You think you've won." She suddenly let out a crazed, hysterical laugh. "Let me tell you a secret that will make you miserable for the rest of your life." My heart seized. A cold dread washed over me. She leaned in close, her voice a poisonous whisper only I could hear. "Sophie, she isn't your daughter. She never was." Boom! My mind went completely blank. A bolt of lightning had struck, and my entire world was sent spinning into darkness. "For what did you say?" My voice was a dry rasp, unrecognizable. Isabella saw the color drain from my face and smiled, a triumphant, cruel expression of pure revenge. "What's wrong? Don't believe me? Sophie was born premature, remember? I was already pregnant when I married you. You were just the convenient fool who got to play daddy. For 5 years, you've been working your ass off to raise another man's daughter. Don't you feel like the biggest joke in the world? Did you really think I ever loved you? Ethan, you're so naive. From the very beginning, I only got close to you because of your talent. I needed a smart dog who could make money for my family. And now the dog thinks it can bite its master? Let me show you what real pain feels like. A pain that goes straight for the soul." Her every word was a poisoned dagger, twisting deep into my heart. Sophie, my Sophie, the little angel who would bring me a glass of milk when I was working late into the night. The little girl who would place her tiny hand on my forehead when I was sick and say, "Feel better, Daddy." The daughter I cherished more than life itself. Wasn't mine? I swayed on my feet, nearly collapsing. I looked at the monstrous woman before me, the woman I once thought was the most beautiful person in the world, and felt a chill that went straight to the bone. She had succeeded. Financial ruin, professional destruction, none of that could compare to the damage inflicted by her words. She had destroyed the last sacred piece of my heart. "Ha ha!" Isabella laughed until tears streamed down her face, reveling in my anguish. "Ethan, do you want to die right now? You should. People like you deserve to have nothing and be abandoned by everyone." I ignored her crazed ranting. I stumbled back into my apartment, leaning against the wall for support, and shut the door. Through the door, I could hear her and her mother's triumphant curses. They thought they had finally broken me. They were right. I was a fool, a complete and utter fool, played like a puppet from the very beginning. I sat in the dark. I didn't sleep a wink. The next day, I made a decision. I needed a DNA test. I needed an answer, a definitive, undeniable answer. Whatever the result, I had to face it. Through a private investigator, I obtained a sample of Sophie's hair. The days I spent waiting for the results were the longest of my life. I didn't dare think about what I would do if what Isabella said was true. I love Sophie. That love is in my bones, my blood. It has nothing to do with genetics. But the thought that my past 5 years have been a lie, a grand deception, was a pain so sharp I could barely breathe. A week later, the report arrived. A thin envelope that felt as heavy as lead. My hands trembled as I opened it. At the bottom of the report, a single line of text. Based on the analysis of the genetic markers, Ethan Cole is excluded as the biological father of Sophie Cole. Excluded. In that moment, I felt my world truly crumble. Isabella hadn't been lying. I really had been the world's biggest fool for 5 years. I crumpled the report into a ball and threw it against the wall, then slid to the floor, completely defeated. I thought my revenge had been swift and total. But in the end, I was the one who had lost the most. I was in agony. I was furious. I wanted to tear Isabella limb from limb. But as the initial wave of pain subsided, a deeper question began to form in my mind. Why would Isabella tell me the truth now? Was it purely for revenge? No. A person as selfish as her would never give up a secret if it still had value. She chose to reveal it now because the secret was no longer a threat to her. In fact, she must believe it could be her ticket to a comeback. Who was Sophie's biological father? Caleb Thorne? No. If Sophie was his, Isabella would have used the child to get something from him when they were in trouble. But he was drowning himself. So, who was Sophie's real father? This man had to be more powerful than I was now, even more powerful than the Vance family at its peak. Isabella thought that by finding this man, she could rise from the ashes and crush me under her heel. She was playing this secret as her final, life-saving trump card. My eyes slowly hardened. Isabella, you think this is your ace in the hole? No, this is the final nail in your coffin, and I'm going to be the one to hammer it in. 5. I started digging. I leveraged all of Singularity's resources, building a powerful AI to construct a massive data profile. I fed it every piece of information I could find on Isabella from the past 7 years. Her social media history, credit card statements, travel records, and social networks. There are no secrets in the digital world. Data doesn't lie. 3 days later, a name emerged from the ocean of information. Julian Sterling, the heir to the Sterling family of New York, the sole successor to the colossal Sterling Industries. A man who truly stood at the pinnacle of the pyramid. The data showed that 6 years ago, Isabella had spent a semester in New York as a visiting student at Columbia. During that time, her spending habits and travel patterns showed a significant overlap with Julian Sterling's. I even found a gossip column item from that year. It mentioned Julian Sterling was rumored to be involved with a visiting student of unknown background, a story the Sterling family's PR machine quickly buried. A blurry paparazzi photo accompanied the article. The woman in the photo was unmistakably Isabella. All the pieces fit. Shortly after returning from New York, Isabella discovered she was pregnant. She wouldn't have dared to approach the Sterlings. A dynasty like that would never accept a woman of her standing. So, she found me, the brilliant, socially awkward tech nerd she saw as the perfect, controllable caretaker. She orchestrated a chance encounter, showered me with attention and affection, and slowly drew me into the web of lies she had woven. As a guy who had spent his entire life focused on code, with little experience in relationships, I never stood a chance. I was her perfect mark. She used me to build Horizon AI and generate immense wealth for her family. Now, cornered and desperate, she had decided to play her Sterling card. She was certain that the Sterling family, for the sake of their only bloodline, would welcome her and Sophie with open arms. And the power Julian Sterling wielded was more than enough to crush me, a new player on the scene. It was quite a master plan. I looked at the picture of Julian Sterling on my screen. He was handsome, confident, his eyes holding the kind of innate arrogance that only comes with old money. I felt no fear, just the cold, thrilling excitement of a hunter spotting his prey. Julian Sterling, is it? You want to play the father? You'll have to ask for my permission first. I didn't confront Isabella. I didn't contact Julian. I waited. I let Isabella direct the final act of her own play. Sure enough, a few days later, she took Sophie to New York. Through some channel, She managed to contact Julian Sterling and presented him with a DNA test proving Sophie was his daughter. The news sent shockwaves through the Sterling family. Julian was nearly 30, unmarried, and had no children. His father, the patriarch of the family, was desperate for a grandchild to carry on the Sterling name. The sudden appearance of a granddaughter was a bombshell. The Sterlings immediately sent for Isabella and Sophie, bringing them to the family mansion on the Upper East Side and arranging for their own, more comprehensive DNA test. The results were, of course, a match. Sophie was a Sterling. Overnight, Isabella, the bankrupt disgrace, was transformed. She was now the fiancée of the heir to one of America's great fortunes. The media narrative flipped on a dime. The same outlets that had vilified her now described her with words like resilient, a devoted mother, and celebrated their fated romance. In a tearful interview, she spun a tale of how she had endured 5 years of misunderstanding and hardship to protect her daughter. She claimed her marriage to me was a sham, a desperate measure to give her daughter a name. She said she had never loved me, that her heart had always belonged to Julian. She painted me as the pitiful, obsessive obstacle standing in the way of her true love. The massive debts owed by the Van Cess were wiped away with a wave of the Sterling checkbook. Marcus and his wife were back to their life of luxury, more arrogant than ever. They made a public statement directed at me. Ethan, a man needs to know his place. You can't keep what isn't yours. Sophie is a Sterling. She has nothing to do with you. Stop harassing our family. The world was laughing at me. They all thought I was finished. My investors at Singularity AI started getting nervous, calling me and subtly advising me not to pick a fight with the Sterling family. Rumors began to circulate within my own company. Once again, I was pushed to the edge of a cliff. The day before Isabella and Julian's engagement party, I received a call from Julian Sterling himself. His voice was condescending, dripping with the magnanimity of a king addressing a peasant. Ethan Cole, Isabella has told me about you. You've had a rough few years, I'm sure. Tell you what, name your price. How much will it take for you to disappear from their lives for good? I laughed. Mr. Sterling, do I seem like a man who needs money? He paused, then chuckled. Maybe not right now. You're the CEO of Singularity AI, after all. If I can make you need it. Very badly. The threat was unmistakable. Oh, really? I leaned back in my chair, my voice casual. Julian, you think you've already won? Do you really think you know the woman you're about to marry? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just a friendly piece of advice. At the big show tomorrow, don't blink. I hung up, a chilling glint in my eye. Isabella, Julian, your party is over. I opened my laptop and sent an encrypted file to a secure email address. It was my gift to them. The final, fatal blow. 6. Julian Sterling and Isabella Vance's engagement party was held at one of New York's most exclusive 5-star hotels. The extravagance of the event was the talk of the city. The guest list was a who's who of finance, politics, and high society. Isabella, draped in a multi-million-dollar gown, clung to Julian's arm, her face alight with the bliss of a dream realized. She looked every bit the queen of her new kingdom. My former in-laws mingled with the elite, soaking in the praise and adulation. They thought this was the pinnacle of their lives. They didn't know it was their last supper. Halfway through the ceremony, the massive LED screen at the center of the ballroom, which was supposed to be playing a romantic montage of the happy couple, suddenly went black. A moment later, a voice filled the silent room. An audio recording. Caleb, the baby is Julian Sterling's. But the Sterlings would never let me through the front door. Don't worry. Once I lock down that idiot Ethan and use him to get the company off the ground, we'll have our own capital. Then, I'll kick him to the curb, and we can take the money and run. Just us. It was Isabella's voice, seductive and venomous. In the background, a man's heavy breathing was audible. The entire hall was frozen. Every eye in the room swiveled to the stage, to the woman whose face had gone deathly pale. Julian's face turned to stone. He whipped his head around to stare at Isabella, his eyes burning with a murderous rage. What the hell is this? Explain yourself. Isabella, terrified, began to shriek incoherently. No, it's not me. It's fake. That bastard Ethan faked it. Fake. The screen flickered to life again, this time with a high-definition video. The location was a hotel room. The timestamp was from the second year of my marriage to Isabella. The video showed Isabella and Caleb Thorne, naked and entangled in bed. The images were graphic, and their conversation was even more explosive. "Babe, when do you think that loser Ethan is finally going to realize you're cheating on him?" Caleb asked with a laugh. Isabella scoffed, her face a mask of contempt. "He's a clueless nerd who only thinks about code. I could drop dead in front of him, and he wouldn't know why. I'm just going to bleed him dry, and then I'll get rid of him and that little stray I picked up." That little stray. She had called Sophie a stray. The room erupted in gasps and frantic whispers. "My God, this is unbelievable." So, this wasn't about protecting her child. She was playing everyone from the start. First, she uses Ethan as a cover. Then she's sleeping with Caleb. And now she's latched onto Julian Sterling? Who is this woman? Julian was trembling, not with anger, but with pure, unadulterated humiliation. He, Julian Sterling, heir to the Sterling Empire, had just been made into the biggest fool in New York City, in front of everyone who mattered. "You bitch!" he roared, and slapped Isabella across the face with all his might. She crumpled to the floor, her designer gown soiled, looking like a pathetic alley cat. But I wasn't done. When I give a gift, I make sure it's a complete set. The screen changed again. This time, it displayed two documents: a detailed financial report and a medical record. A deep, authoritative voice, digitally synthesized to sound exactly like Julian's father, echoed from the speakers. "According to our investigation, Ms. Isabella Vance, due to multiple complications from procedures undergone 6 years ago, was rendered permanently infertile. Therefore, it is medically impossible for her to be the biological mother of the child. The claim of a Sterling bloodline was, from the very beginning, a complete and utter fraud." Boom! If the audio and video had been a humiliation for the Sterling family, this was a public declaration that they had been conned, played for fools by nobody. Isabella completely lost it. She pointed a trembling finger at the screen, screaming, "It's a lie. It's all lies. Sophie is my daughter. I gave birth to her. Did you now?" My voice cut through the chaos from the back of the ballroom. Dressed in a simple pair of jeans and a casual jacket, I walked calmly through the parted crowd. All eyes turned to me. I ignored them, walking straight to the stage to stand over the whimpering Isabella and the apoplectic Julian Sterling. "Isabella, you seem to have forgotten. I was the one who arranged for the hospital where Sophie was born. Your premature labor, your difficult delivery. I have a copy of every single medical file." I held up my phone, displaying another document. "This is an adoption agreement." My voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the silent room. "Sophie Cole was legally adopted by me, Ethan Cole, from an orphanage 5 years ago. She has no biological connection to you, Isabella, or to you, Julian, or to anyone else in this room. It was you, Isabella, who begged me to go along with this charade of being the surprise father. You needed the perfect prop for your plan to build an empire and marry into wealth. You swore you loved children, that you would treat her as your own. And I believed you. I sealed all of Sophie's records. I raised her as my own daughter, and I gave her all the love I had. And what did you do? You used her. You used her to deceive me, to deceive Caleb, and to deceive Julian Sterling. You took an innocent child and turned her into a pawn for your ambition and greed. Isabella, what is your heart made of?" Isabella was speechless, staring at me as if I were the devil himself. She was right. I had lied to everyone. The DNA report was a fake. I had the private investigator fabricated. I deliberately led Isabella to believe that Sophie was Julian's child. I personally escorted her to the gates of paradise, only to push her off the edge at the moment of her greatest triumph. I wanted her to know what it felt like to fall from the heavens and be shattered into a million pieces. I wanted Julian Sterling, this arrogant prince, to pay the ultimate price for his hubris and stupidity. As for the recordings and videos, from the day I first suspected Isabella was cheating on me with Caleb, I had our home, our offices, every place we frequented, wired with the most advanced surveillance equipment imaginable. I was sitting on a treasure trove of her darkest secrets. I held my cards close, waiting for the perfect moment, a moment where I could take them all down in a single, inescapable checkmate. Julian stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and fear. He finally understood. He hadn't picked a fight with some lowly programmer. He had crossed a meticulous, cold-blooded demon bent on revenge. From the audience, the Sterling patriarch roared, "Security! Get this disgusting woman out of my sight. The Sterling family will not be disgraced like this." Guards stormed the stage and dragged the screaming, cursing Isabella out like a sack of garbage. Marcus and his wife tried to slip away, but were immediately surrounded by furious guests. Their fate was sealed. Julian Sterling stood before me, utterly defeated. "Cole," he ground out through clenched teeth. "You win." "Win?" I shook my head and leaned in close, my voice a whisper only he could hear. "No, Mr. Sterling. The game is just beginning." In that file I sent, along with the dirt on Isabella, I included a little bonus gift. It's a comprehensive record of Sterling Industries' offshore money laundering, accounting fraud, and insider trading for the past decade. I suspect the SEC and the IRS are probably knocking on your door right about now. Julian's body went rigid. His eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated terror. How could you?" I stood up straight and gave him a bright, cheerful smile. "I forgot to introduce myself properly. Besides being the CEO of Singularity AI, I have a side gig. I'm a special consultant to the National Cyber Defense Directorate. This was my final identity. And this was my final judgment for these so-called elites who live their lives above the law." Epilogue: The Sterling Empire fell. Faced with a mountain of irrefutable evidence I provided, the vast, deeply rooted Sterling Industries collapsed under the weight of a federal investigation. Julian, his father, and a host of senior executives were indicted. They would face the full, unyielding force of the law. Isabella was convicted of fraud and sentenced to a long prison term. I heard she had a psychotic break, and now spends her days telling anyone who will listen that she's the matriarch of a powerful dynasty. Caleb Thorne had long since been disbarred and imprisoned for securities fraud, his name becoming a cautionary tale in the world of finance. My world was finally quiet. 1 year later, Singularity AI went public simultaneously on the NYSE and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. On its first day of trading, its market cap broke $1 trillion, a new record for a tech IPO. I stood on the balcony overlooking the trading floor, my daughter, Sophie, by my side. She was wearing a beautiful dress, her eyes shining with adoration as she looked up at me. "Daddy, you're amazing." I smiled and ruffled her hair. "You're the amazing one, Sophie. You're my lucky star." Down below, Leo and the rest of my team were weeping with joy. As I stepped off the platform, Director Evans, my contact at the NCDED, who had quietly supported my efforts, walked over. "You did good, Ethan," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Your country is grateful." He paused, then added, "Your ex-wife got 10 years. As for the kid, her name is Sophie Cole." I interrupted him, my voice firm. "And she's my daughter. Always." Evans looked at me for a moment. Then a smile of genuine respect spread across his face. That evening, I took Sophie back to our new home. She was hugging a teddy bear, her voice small as she curled up next to me. "Daddy, where did Mommy and Grandpa and Grandma go? I haven't seen them in a long time." I held her close and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city skyline. "Them," I said, my voice soft and calm. "They went to a very faraway place. They had to go say they were sorry for a very big mistake they made. It's going to take a long, long time." Sophie nodded, as if she understood. "Daddy," she said, tilted her head back to look at me, her eyes clear and bright. "Will you ever leave me?" In that instant, my heart was filled with a warmth so profound it washed away every last scar of the past. All the hatred, all the scheming, all the pain, it all vanished. I held her tighter and kissed her forehead. "Never. Daddy will never, ever leave you. Because you, my darling daughter, are the only thing that matters. You are my light in this cold, dark world. The one true thing I will spend the rest of my life protecting."